When it comes to quarterback Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions, he's often considered a very good quarterback, but he's almost never considered one of the best in the NFL. But in today's episode, we're going to talk about how an unexpected source just gave him an elite status. Stay tuned, everybody.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. My friends, for this episode, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about how some unexpected news came up, I think it was either yesterday or the day before yesterday. But what actually happened is this, and let's give it a little bit of context here. When we're talking about some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, obviously for most people it centers around a couple of names. Patrick Mahomes obviously being one, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and that right there is typically most of the top, guys that are going to instantly be rattled off right off the bat. But past that, it's all up to interpretation and opinion. Now, what about Jared Goff? Jared Goff is one of those quarterbacks that you either have him in the top 10 for most people, or he's not in the top 10, and he's just barely out of the top 10. When I talk to a lot of people about Jared Goff that obviously aren't Lions fans, the perception I've gotten is that if Jared Goff is a top 10 quarterback, he's either 9 or 10. But most people would be more often to believe that he's just outside the top 10, ranked number 11 or 12. Which, again, I've never been able to understand that, considering the fact that Jared Goff over the last 3 years has been one of the most productive quarterbacks in the entirety of the NFL. He's been able to help resurrect the Lions program from the depths of hell, in essence, and most people just continually overlook that information. But the one thing I will say is every now and again, you're going to have somebody that is going to come out and they're going to have a different set of opinions. Now, one thing I know about opinions is this. Everybody has opinions. And as the saying goes, everybody's opinions stink. Because, hey, most people, their opinions are not really backed up by facts. They're not really substantiated by anything that actually has merit. Most of the time, it's just them spouting off what they think, what they believe. What I like to do with my opinions is I like to try and mask my opinion by giving it some deodorant, and my deodorant is facts, data, analysis, the whole 9 yards. I will rarely, if ever, give my opinion and have nothing to back it up on. Now, when we're talking about opinions in that sense of the word, why are we talking about Jared Goff in this context? The reason why is because Donovan McNab just released a list the other day of his top 5 quarterbacks going into 2024. And surprise, surprise, Jared Goff was on that list. Now that I'm going to say is a shocker. That I'm going to say is completely unexpected. I have never, ever heard of a former, quarterback, let alone one of Donovan McNab's stature, say that Jared Goff is a top 5 quarterback. I have been yet to hear analysts give Jared Goff that kind of recognition. But yet Donovan McNab just said that in his opinion, Jared Goff is one of the top 5 quarterbacks going into the 2024 season. Now, who are the other 4 guys on this list? Well, obviously, Patrick Mahomes is on the list. Wouldn't be much of a list if he wasn't on there. He also has Lamar Jackson, he also has Joe Burrow, and he has Dak Prescott. So those are the 5 quarterbacks. Mahomes, Lamar, Burrow, Prescott, and Goff. That's Donovan McNab's top 5 going into 2024. Not exactly a, I would say, bad list. I mean, there are some names that I would contest, at least a little bit, but okay, whatever. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. But I do know this. There are some notable absences on that list that I know for some people, they're going to have a problem with. Case in point, Josh Allen is not on that list. Matthew Stafford is not on that list. Aaron Rodgers is not on that list. And, surprise, the fact that Donovan McNab, the former Eagles all-time great quarterback, he didn't include Jalen Hurts, the Eagles quarterback right now, on that list. So that is actually a rather interesting list that, there are other guys that I guarantee you that if we were to give this into any other normal fan, they would be like, how in the thunder a guy like Goff gets on this list versus, Allen or Stafford, Rodgers, whatever the case might be. They would be like, no, that doesn't make any sense. But for me, it totally does make sense because of what Jared Goff has accomplished, plus also what Jared Goff has produced on the field. But that's regardless of the point. Regardless of what my opinion is, this is what Donovan McNabb's opinion is. And what did Donovan McNab say specifically about Jared Goff to back up and substantiate his claim? This is exactly what he said, and this is coming from a quote during an interview that was actually, of all things, on a Los Angeles radio station. So that's even more of a complete surprise because Matthew Stafford's out in Los Angeles, and Donovan McNab did not put him on the show, kind of like to give, some kudos. So I thought that was rather interesting. But McNab said this about Goff. He said, I say Jared Goff because I think Detroit is kind of on the verge of really exploding. I look at Jared Goff and really Jordan Love in the NFC North, and they're going to battle back and forth. I think those will be the ones we'll be talking about later on in the year. Okay, let's just understand exactly what Donovan McNab is saying there. First and foremost, he's looking at Jared Goff as being one of the top 5 quarterbacks in a two-part, in a twofold kind of a piece of information here. The first piece of information and the first piece of his, I would say, analysis is that obviously Jared Goff is talented enough to get into this conversation. But McNab is also putting into this conversation that he believes that the team that the Lions have is on the verge of exploding. It's on the verge of taking that next step. And obviously with Jared Goff at the helm, being the leader of the franchise, he believes that Jared Goff and the team together have the ability to take that next step forward. So that's what McNab is in essence saying here about Jared Goff. Now, why exactly should people listen to Donovan McNab other than just the fact that, hey, you know what? Donovan McNab is a very well-known name, especially if you're a football fan. Why is his opinion in this case of the, whatever, considered reputable, considered solid? Well, let's just take a look at Donovan McNab's resume, shall we? When Donovan McNab was playing in the NFL, he was a 6-time Pro Bowler, back when the Pro Bowl actually meant something. He was a 5-time NFC East Division title winner. He made it to 5 NFC Conference Championship games, 4 of them actually in a row from 2001 to 2004. He made it to the Super Bowl, and he's the Eagles' record holder in both passing touchdowns and passing yards and several other passing stats. So when you take a look at what Donovan McNab was able to do, he was able to accomplish quite a damn bit in his career. And if you go back to the early 2000s, Donovan McNab was probably considered one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL during that time. And I'm talking from 2000 to 2005, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that range. Because if you go back to those days, you're talking about guys like Brady, Manning, Favre, and then after that it kind of gets a little bit, squirrely and up for grabs. But you couldn't have a conversation about the top 5 quarterbacks back in those days without including McNab. You just couldn't do it. That's how good McNab was back in those days. And when you consider that McNab had all the accomplishments that he had with the Eagles, and the fact that he was able to play as well as he was back in the early 2000s the way he was, it's quite obvious that Donovan McNab knows about quarterbacks. He's very knowledgeable about not only quarterback play, but also about football in general. So, okay, this isn't just some, TV analyst. This isn't just some, commentator who gets paid to talk about football, but either one, never played professional football or hasn't played football since they were in high school or some dumb nonsense. This is talking about a guy that actually has played at the top level when he was in the NFL. That does speak volumes. That does have some merit. That does have some weight. So for me, the fact that Donovan McNab would say, hey, I think Jared Goff is one of the top 5 quarterbacks going into this season, that is a big piece of news, especially considering that this is going to be, in a lot of people's opinions, the Lions' run for the Super Bowl. I mean, you talk to almost anybody out there right now, the Lions are considered probably within the top 3 teams to go for a Super Bowl this year. And usually, it's got to be the Kansas City Chiefs. You might throw the 49ers or the Ravens in there. It depends on who you swap in and out. But then usually team number 3 is the Detroit Lions. So, the fact that Donovan McNab is saying this in light of everything that's going on, that does have a lot of meaning here. And I believe that one of the observations that I can make about this is that if you take a look again, McNab is not a nobody. The man has quite a lot of knowledge, has quite a lot of recognition in the NFL community. He's a big-time name. And the fact that he thinks Goff is a top 5 quarterback is huge for both Goff and obviously for the Detroit Lions. And here's the reason why. It's big because, one, it shows Jared Goff's growth and progression from when, again, he was cast off and exiled here to Detroit, and everybody thought his career was going to flame out, die, and he was just going to become an afterthought. But yet, in 3 years, a guy like Donovan McNab thinks he's a top 5 quarterback. Talk about a vast turnaround right there. And the same goes for the Lions. Think about it. They also, much like Jared Goff, were pretty much floundering in 2021. But here we are now 3 years later, going on 4 years later, and they're considered one of the best teams in the NFL. That right there shows just how far we've come and how vast things have changed. The second observation I can make here is when I talked about the guys that were not on this list, guys like Stafford, guys like Rodgers, guys like Allen, that right there, I think, is due to 2 separate reasons. When it comes to Stafford and it comes to Rodgers, I think the reason McNab did not put them on that list is because I think McNab thinks that their time is either past or is passing. Let's call it for what it is here. Aaron Rodgers, he might have been one of the best quarterbacks to ever play in the 2000s and early 2010. But he has not been the same quarterback for almost 3 years. And I sincerely doubt that a 40-year-old quarterback coming off of a ruptured Achilles is going to do much of anything. And then when we take a look at Stafford, Stafford's got one of the strongest arms still in the NFL, and he still can make plays with the best of them. But the Rams are not a team that's going to go to the Super Bowl. They're a playoff competitor. They're going to win games. But at this point, the Rams' time has passed. They had their shot. They had their fun in 2021, and that's it. At this point, there's nothing really left for them that they're going to be able to accomplish. They're going to win games, make the playoffs, but that's about it. And when you talk about Josh Allen, I think the reason why McNab didn't put Allen on this list is because I don't think he thinks the team is good enough. Again, that goes back to what I said about the whole conversation about Jared Goff. Jared Goff has the talent, just like Josh Allen has the talent. But when you take a look at the Bills versus the Lions, it's a night and day difference. The Bills don't have the offensive weaponry that they need to win a Super Bowl. And they lost a lot of defensive playmakers in free agency and some to injury this year. So I think that's another reason why Donovan McNab did not put, Josh Allen on this list. So for me, I think this whole situation with Donovan McNab is what you would call perfect time, right time, right place. The fact that Jared Goff is at this right time in history, that he has reached the pinnacle of his powers and is still getting better, and the fact that the Lions are in the perfect spot, the perfect position, ready to go to a Super Bowl. If I'm McNab, I'll be like, dude, this is a perfect setup when you are just ready to go and make that run for that Super Bowl. You have the veteran quarterback. You have the offensive weaponry. You've invested a lot of defensive, resources. You have everything you need. All you got to do now is put it together. So that, to me, is why I think McNab put Goff on the list, because he believes Goff is both good enough and the Lions have the roster to get to the Super Bowl. And that is a huge piece of news, especially considering the fact we're getting ready to play the Rams on Sunday night. And the Lions are going to be going up against quite a lot of big-name opponents this year. But Anyway, folks, I just wanted to make this quick episode because I thought it was pretty interesting, and I don't think anybody, paid much attention to it. I don't think many people actually knew it happened, but it's definitely something that I think us Lions fans should definitely, pay attention to, and also be happy we're finally getting recognition, and Jared Goff, even if it's just a little bit, is finally getting respect and recognition. But having said that, I'm going to end the episode and say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to watch the next episode. Also encourage you all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and not had a chance to do so, again, want to highly encourage you all to subscribe. But I also want to encourage y'all, make sure you hit that bell notification icon as well, so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Also want to encourage y'all to share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can. The more we can share it, the greater the channel grows, the greater the channel has a chance to reach out and grab new community members, and the greater spread it has on YouTube. And with that being said to everybody, I hope y'all are enjoying your Labor Day holiday. I hope y'all enjoyed the content. And whether you're a long-time viewer or you just watched for the very first time, I hope y'all are having a fantastic day and you got something that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.